Actually, let's pick up first on what he said last, which is what he would do on his first day if he were to become PM.
Well, Debbie, I can take you back to 2015 as the very first boats began to cross the Mediterranean. And there was an emergency debate in the European Parliament with Mr. Juncker, who was then head of the European Commission. And they proposed putting in place the EU's refugee plan. There'd never been one before. They'd never needed one before. And I spoke in that debate, and I said, if you allow anyone that sets foot, having crossed the Mediterranean onto EU soil, if you allow them to stay as so-called refugees, millions will come, it will be a disaster, and blow me down. That's exactly what they did. It was compounded by Angela Merkel. And if you look at some of the effects, social effects in Sweden and many other countries, it's a disaster.
What do you take from that, Henry?
Well, morning, Nick. There was a bit of a roundabout way, I thought, in terms of getting there. But interestingly, it is leaving the ECHR, which, of course, has become a real sort of issue within the Conservative Party. Robert Jenrick has been long advocating that. So too has Nigel Farage. And I think a lot of the issues he was speaking with you about, small boats, for example, he sees that as the sort of silver bullet. And so to leave an institution like that on day one, as he was effectively hinting, it does sort of smack of Donald Trump wanting
Trumpian, isn't it?
Ending the Russia-Ukraine war on day one.
You can almost see someone handing him the pen and signing it. Oh, this is a big one, and this sort of thing. Yeah.
Exactly, the sort of executive order equivalent. Yes. A few other bits, Nick, that I thought. Obviously, the big story is Rachel Reeves.
I sat pretty much opposite her yesterday. It was pretty painful to watch from the very beginning. I thought she was ill to begin with.
I thought, actually, Nigel Farage stuck the boot in a bit more than I thought he would, in terms of... There was a little bit, a modicum of sympathy, but really, he sort of said, well, I thought she was ill, I've got no sympathy, she lied on her CV, she's hopelessly out of her depth, it was painful to watch. And, of course, the caller that you had on, Nick, echoed a lot of that sentiment as a small business owner. On Glastonbury, now, of course,
yes,
we've been discussing this throughout the week, Bob Vylan in particular, he referenced meeting Tim Davie.
I met Tim Davie about 10 days ago at a drinks party, so full of himself, so the BBC can do no wrong. Well, I tell you what, I bet he's not quite so chirpy this morning. The whole thing was a disgrace, Shana, and predictable. Entirely predictable. This guy, Vylan, was saying kill IDF soldiers a couple of weeks before. But yeah, why did no one exercise any discretion at all? I would suggest, Shana, it's because so many people that work from the BBC come from the same background and have the same views.
Is Glastonbury safe in the BBC's hands?
No. Thank goodness at the end for Lulu and Rod Stewart, and that sort of saved the whole thing, didn't it, really?
And made the point that there should have perhaps been, in his view, some sort of delay, and thank goodness for Lulu and Rod Stewart, but saying that he doesn't think Tim Davie will go, but that he'll struggle over this, and of course questioning the staff they had at Glastonbury.
400 staff and no one able to pull the plug, as Nigel Farage highlighted.
Yeah, and no one to exercise discretion, as Mr. Farage puts. I thought as well, Nick, the sort of lines on Clacton as well.
You don't show us an MP. Last summer, you incited race riots on our streets. You're now anti-gay marriage and anti-women's rights.
Right, well,
so why do you think that you're fit to lead the country?
Don't vote for me. Please don't vote for me. Thank you.
He's given up, not that he was ever trying particularly hard, but he's given up trying to appease all people, really, saying that he knows people don't like him and asking people effectively not to vote for him. He said jobs were the biggest issue in Clacton, and very much like parading to you that he's going to be spending tonight and indeed the next few days in Clacton, even if that doesn't mean managing a football team.
And on Sunday, there's a charity football tournament going on, which I'll be at, and I have a Reform 11, which I'm supposed to be the manager of, which no doubt my leadership abilities will fail there.
Let's hope it's a charity match, because you're right, it's definitely got a lot of publicity as a result. I thought as well, Nick, towards the end, the state visit from Donald Trump, as Natasha was saying earlier on, in terms of that exclusive on Emmanuel Macron, that John Bercow was the stumbling block last time. Of course, he and Nigel Farage are no sort of... they're not exactly friends, to put it plainly.
No.
Well, Bercow's not there anymore, thank goodness, so, he was the one that tried to stop it. Look, whether you like Donald Trump or not, our relationship with America is vital. Utterly vital in every single way. Let's face it. Without America, we're defenceless.
Many Brexiteers see John Bercow sort of thwarting the Brexit process and saying he should absolutely address both houses of Parliament, as it looks like Emmanuel Macron will do. It's a valuable relationship, and even inviting Donald Trump potentially to build a golf course in Clacton at some point in the future.
Let's come back to last part of our conversation, which is the asylum seekers or the boat crossing crisis, whatever you want to call it. And he referenced the story that's borne out by research, by the way. This was not something that he just plucked out of it. Channel migrants, 25 times more likely to go to prison than Britons. He was strong on that and sort of indicated that it could fuel unrest again this summer.
We have sex offenders, we have terrorists now crossing the English Channel. Just one little example. Already, someone that's crossed in a boat is 25 times more likely to go to prison than a British national. I'm looking at increases in sexual assaults in parts of the north of England, around migrant hotel areas. What is happening, Davie, is genuinely shocking. So what are we going to do about this? Well, let me tell you something. Starmer will do nothing. Absolutely nothing. There's talk of a one-in, one-out deal with Macron. I can't see that coming into effect. I can't see it working. The only thing we have to do is, like the Australians did back in 2012 when they had the same problem, they had boats coming from Indonesia, is number one, you make it clear that nobody that ever comes via this route will ever be given permanent leave to remain. And I think that this issue, it's going to explode over the summer.
Well, you told us so many times, when the population makes the connection between these young men and increased sexual crime, when that connection is made, you wait.
Yeah, and I thought that in particular, the idea of sort of summer riots, and indeed you had one caller who levied the last riots that we saw in the wake of the Southport murders at Nigel Farage. He called them the Farage riots. But with regards to this, I mean, it's quite something for someone who is leading in the polls, who admittedly only has 5 MPs, but really someone who is trying to professionalise, to modernise the party, someone who, as he told you, very clearly, very straightforwardly, unambiguously, I want to be Prime Minister, to speculate on the possibility of riots taking place this summer because of small boats. He said it could be a democratic change in government, but really hinted a divided society, anger levels out there are huge, and there could be riots.
Lastly, if he were to go the whole way, and it's a heck of a path he has to tread, cabinet government in a different way.
I think the way we run our country is ridiculous. We put cabinet ministers in charge of departments over which they have absolutely zero knowledge. They'll often last in that job for 12, 18 months. I mean, barely time to get their feet under the table and understand the brief. But we're stuck in this mindset, Kevin, that the cabinet must all be politicians in the House of Commons. Why? Why? It's nonsense. Look at America. Scott Bessent has come in as the US Treasury Secretary. Never stood for election in his life, but a very, very successful businessman.
So who are some of the people you might have your eye on?
Oh, I'm not going to give you answers like that right now.
But a cabinet under Nigel Farage, you wouldn't have to be the MP for Upper Whoop Whoop.
No.
You could be a hugely successful businessman or woman who ran a supermarket chain for 10 years.
Or whatever it may be.
How would that go down your political watch? How would that go down in Westminster? How would it go down in the United Kingdom?
Well, it's an interesting idea. It's similar to Gordon Brown's government of all the talent, isn't it? When he brought in Lord West, the former Sea Lord, and his sort of advocation of frigates. More battleships. He also brought in Lord Digby Jones, who'd been very senior at the CBI as well. So it's been done before to some extent, but perhaps not totally successfully. The issue with Nigel Farage, Nick, and you're seeing this with the Conservatives at the moment, when you've got so few MPs, and indeed he only has 5, that there's not really the people to give the jobs to. So if he is serious, that I think he told you that these were big names as well. These weren't sort of people you've never heard of in business. If there are big names who genuinely want to join his party, then presumably he'll have to stick them in the House of Lords. There are various logistics to be pointed out, but Nick, I mean, hypothetically, if he's a business secretary, a chancellor, a foreign secretary, who are all sort of random people, well-known random people, but random people who haven't been elected, how is that going to work for any sort of scrutiny? Lots of questions, more than answers.